Hello everyone, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Killer Instinct, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah and I am your host of Killer Instinct. Before we get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Wednesday, and we also upload the video version onto YouTube on Wednesdays as well. So make sure you are subscribed. And with that being said, you guys, happy Halloweek. We are now on episode 3 of our Halloweek series. And if you were unaware, Halloweek is the series where for the 4 days leading up to Halloween, we are putting out back-to-back true crime Halloween-related episodes. And today is no different. Like I mentioned, today we are on episode 3 of our Halloweek series, which means that we are nearing the end of Halloweek. Tomorrow is Halloween. And as you can tell by the title of today's episode, we are talking about the brutal murder of Nicole Hutchings. Nicole was only 21 years old when her life was ended by those that she thought that she could trust. And with that being said, let's jump right on into it today. Nicole Hutchings was born on June 15th, 1983 in San Francisco, California to her mom, Robin. Nicole was raised by Robin and her stepfather, Jim, who came into her life when Nicole was around a year and a half old. Jim was really the only father figure that Nicole ever knew, and Jim raised her as his own daughter. Jim was a U.S. Marine, and him and Nicole were always a big fan of doing outdoor activities together. Nicole absolutely loved spending time with Jim, going fishing and hunting, anything that revolved around camping or hiking. Nicole was actually only 2 years old when she caught her first fish with Jim. Now, the family of 3 soon became a family of 4 when Nicole's younger sister, Amanda, was born right before Nicole's 4th birthday. Now, this was actually the same year that the family decided to move to Bend, Oregon. They had been to Bend several times in the past, and they absolutely fell in love with the laid-back community and the small town feel, and they were really excited to start this new chapter of their lives there. Now, Nicole in particular was incredibly ecstatic. She was over the moon when her younger sister Amanda was born, and she fully took on the role of being the second mom. She was always wanting to hold her sister, always wanting to watch her sister, feed her. She loved having a little sibling. And it was a few years later where Nicole had another sibling to dote over when her younger brother Timothy was born. Now, by the time Nicole was in elementary school, she was absolutely thriving. Jim said that she was known to be a math whiz because she was so intelligent, but her other hobbies included cooking, sewing, and like I said, she loved outdoor activities like fishing and hunting. But one of Nicole's biggest passions in life was animals, specifically wolves and dolphins, and she had dreams of one day becoming a veterinarian or a marine biologist. However, her initial plans after graduating high school included following in Jim's footsteps and joining the Marine Corps. Now, as she got a little bit older and got into more of her teenage years, Nicole definitely started getting a little bit more rebellious. She attended Mountain View High School and got in trouble multiple times for acting out. She did get suspended for fighting on one occasion. Her parents said that they taught their kids to always stick up for themselves and always defend themselves, and Nicole definitely adopted those qualities. Nicole definitely struggled with her grades during high school, but she was thriving in other areas. She was a member of the Oregon Youth Challenge program, which taught kids about discipline and other day-to-day skills that they wouldn't learn in school. During her sophomore year of high school, Nicole ended up volunteering for a humane society and would later on move to volunteer at a wolf sanctuary. And she actually ended up living on site at this wolf sanctuary while she was caring for the animals that were there. She would take the bus to and from the wolf sanctuary. The bus would pick her up and take her to school, and then she would return back to the sanctuary at night, and she absolutely loved this. Nicole graduated from high school in 2001, and afterwards, instead of going straight to the Marine Corps as she had initially planned, she continued working at the sanctuary. She eventually got involved working with horses there, and she would help give other people guided tours that were there. And by fall of 2001, Nicole did end up moving back in with her parents, Robin and Jim, and and she left the sanctuary and started just working some odd jobs here and there. She would go through a cycle of landing a job, working there for a short period of time, and then quitting because she didn't like it, and then that pattern would repeat itself. Now, according to Jim and Robin, they said that around this time, fall of 2001, this is when Nicole started getting into a little bit different of a friend group. Nicole had a lot of friends, but they weren't necessarily in the best crowd. Her parents said that Nicole would bring home friends constantly. She would bring home new people every single week, and her parents weren't really thrilled at Nicole's choice in friends. They thought that her friends could potentially be leading Nicole down a bad path. They thought that her friends could possibly not have their priorities in check. It just wasn't the group of friends that her parents wanted for her. But nonetheless, Nicole did seem really happy. At the time of her disappearance, Nicole was spending a lot of time filling out job applications, and it really did seem like she was trying to prepare herself and set herself up for success for that next stage in her life. Now, this case begins on Halloween night of 2004, and it started out like any normal Halloween night. Nicole's sister Amanda was at work, and Jim had gone to Amanda's work to pick her up and drive her home. So Nicole and Robin were the only ones at the house, and they were passing out candy for the trick-or-treaters in the area. Now, again, Nicole was 21 years old at the time, and a little after 8 p.m. that night, one of Nicole's friends showed up to Nicole's house. They told Nicole that there was a Halloween party going on and asked Nicole if she would be able to go. Now, Nicole then went inside and told her mom about what was going on and asked if it was okay that she went out to this Halloween party. She told her mom where the party was going to be, who she was going to be with, and Robin felt comfortable and just told Nicole to be safe. Again, she was 21 years old, so it wasn't completely out of the picture for Nicole to be going out on Halloween night. Now, Nicole reassured Robin that she would be safe and she would be home later that evening, and then Nicole left the house with her friends, not knowing that she would never come back. Now, the following morning, November 1st, Jim said that he woke up and went to Nicole's room to check on her. However, she was not in there. But what was there was Nicole's purse, her ID, and her wallet. And Jim thought that that definitely was a little bit odd, but he figured that maybe Nicole just had a late night, maybe she spent the night at a friend's house, so they weren't overly concerned in the beginning. But as hours began to pass and no one had heard from Nicole, this is when the worry began to grow. Nicole typically always told her parents where she was or where she was going, what she was doing. She just gave them some reassurance that she was okay whenever she was out. They always had a really good line of communication that way. However, they did not hear from Nicole for the entire day on November 1st. Later in the afternoon, Nicole's parents started calling around to some of Nicole's close friends to see if anyone had heard from her. However, no one had. And by nightfall of November 1st, that is when Robin and Jim decided to call the police to file a missing persons report for Nicole. Police immediately arrived to the Hutchings household, and they asked Nicole's family who were some of Nicole's closest people to her. Now, according to Robin and Jim, they did tell police that Nicole did have a boyfriend at the time, and that boyfriend's name was Bobby. They went on to say that everyone really liked Bobby in the beginning of their relationship, and the two seemed to get along very well. However, over time, things did begin to become more toxic between the two of them. Bobby and Nicole were constantly fighting, and it just didn't seem like Bobby was treating Nicole well. They actually went as far as to say that Bobby was abusive towards Nicole. While police were at the Hutchings household gathering this information, Amanda did come forward to police and said that there was something that was bothering her about Nicole's behavior on the night of her disappearance. According to Amanda, she said that as she was gathering her things to leave for work that day, Nicole asked if the two of them could talk about something later that night when Amanda got home. Now, initially, Amanda didn't really think anything of it. She just told Nicole that sure, they could have a conversation. They could talk about whatever it is that Nicole wanted to talk about later when Amanda got home from work. However, now that Nicole was missing, the timing of that seemed suspicious, and it made Amanda believe that whatever Nicole wanted to talk about could have been very serious. So now with all of this information, police wanted to track down Bobby, and when they did so, he told police that him and Nicole had broken up the previous weekend, so just in the days leading up to Nicole's disappearance, which obviously led police to a lot of questions and suspicion surrounding Bobby, thinking maybe the breakup wasn't amicable, thinking maybe Bobby could have lashed out at her in some way. They did bring him down to the police station for further questioning, and he did agree to take a polygraph test, which he ended up passing. Along with that, he did have an alibi for Halloween night, so because of those two things, police really did have to switch directions in their investigation. Because police knew that Nicole went to a Halloween party on the night of her disappearance, they really wanted to talk to anyone and everyone who saw Nicole that night and who was at this Halloween party. They wanted to know if anyone saw Nicole leaving with someone, if she was acting strange, just an overall better understanding of what that night was like. Now, at this point, this is when police spoke to a woman named Mary. And Mary was actually living in the home that the Halloween party took place in. Mary told police that she lived in the home with several other roommates, two of them being Nicole's very good friends, and these were two males. These men were named Lauren Bowers and Craig Whiting. Now, according to Mary, she went on to say that Lauren and Craig, again, were extremely close to Nicole. Lauren was one of Nicole's best friends, and Craig was Lauren's best friend. So they all knew each other very, very well. Now, Craig even actually ended up living with Nicole and her family at one point. He ended up living with them for a period of 6 months while he was trying to get his life in order. Nicole's family allowed him to come in and really gave him a place to get himself back on his feet. And according to Nicole's family, they said that Craig was always just a very big, goofy guy. However, according to Mary, she said that both men were very upset with Nicole on Halloween night, on the night of this party. However, according to her, she did not know why. So she just gave police the information that Lauren and Craig did not seem too happy with Nicole. And again, Lauren and Craig also lived at this house that the Halloween party was taking place in. Now, at this point, police went to that house. They decided to go to the house where the Halloween party was at, and that is where they spoke to Lauren and Craig. Now, when they did this, this is when they learned that Lauren had a girlfriend, and this girlfriend had two children. One was 6 years old at the time, and the other was 2 years old. And Nicole would oftentimes go over to the house and babysit. She would spend time with the kids. She was great with children. Children absolutely loved her, and she loved kids as well. So this was a win-win situation for everyone. And along with that, she was also friends with Lauren. So it worked out in everyone's favor. Now, when police spoke to Lauren and Craig, they both said that the last time they remembered seeing Nicole was around approximately midnight. However, they don't have any memory of seeing her after that. They said for all things considered, the Halloween party itself was very normal. It was your average Halloween party, nothing crazy. And they continuously said that they did not know what happened to Nicole. However, they also hadn't heard from her after the party. And in regard to Lauren and Craig being upset with Nicole, they told police that there was no reason for them to be upset with Nicole. They weren't upset with Nicole at all. They didn't know why that rumor was being spread. They were not unhappy with her that night. And in fact, they wanted her to come to the party. And according to police, they said that both Lauren and Craig expressed just about the right amount of concern. They didn't seem overly concerned, but they also didn't seem like they didn't care. They did seem like they wanted Nicole to be found, and they seemed like they wanted to help in the investigation wherever they could. Now, after police spoke with Lauren and Craig, this is when the detectives did a background check on both of them. And when they did, they actually learned that Lauren was a registered sex offender and was in jail for almost 2 years for a rape that he had committed in 1995. Now, as you can imagine, this was obviously alarming for police to learn, and it was also something that Nicole's family was not aware of until detectives told them. But other than this previous conviction and other than the fact that he was a registered sex offender, there was no other suspicion surrounding Lauren, and police didn't think that he was connected to Nicole's disappearance. So, because of this standstill in the investigation, detectives really started to consider the fact that Nicole could have left on her own. She was over the age of 18, which meant that she wasn't a runaway. She had every right, if she wanted to leave the city or the state and go off and do whatever it is that she wanted. Now, Nicole's family knew that that was not the case from the very beginning, even though there was a part of them that wanted to hold out on hope that maybe that was true. Maybe Nicole was out there because that meant that she was still alive. They really didn't believe that she would just leave without saying anything. Now, at this point, Nicole's disappearance was blasted all over the media, and this led to a lot of people calling into the police station and giving different tips and leads. And many, many people reported seeing Nicole. There were many Nicole sightings that took place. There were many Nicole sightings in Bend and in surrounding towns, which again, it gave the family a little bit more hope because, again, they wanted to believe that Nicole was alive and she was okay and that she was just choosing not to come home for whatever reason. And maybe one day she would choose to come back. But then things took a turn. In the midst of the countless people that were calling and giving these Nicole sightings to the detectives, there were three separate individuals that called police saying something very, very different. These three people told police that Nicole had been murdered and that they needed to look into a man named Spider. These individuals said that Spider had murdered Nicole and buried her on his property. Now, Spider is a nickname, and the real name of Spider is actually Danny Shane. And at the time, he was a part of a gang called the Park Rats, and these Park Rats were known to terrorize people in a park called Drake Park, which again was located in Bend. Now, Drake Park was a little bit sketchier and dicier at night, and the locals of Bend knew that once nighttime hit, Drake Park was not really somewhere that you wanted to be because of these quote unquote park rats terrorizing other people. Now, according to Jim, he said that he knew that Nicole was starting to hang around some of these park rats, and he was not happy about it one bit. He was worried that Nicole was going to be steered down the wrong path because he knew that these park rats were involved in drugs and other illegal activity that he did not want Nicole surrounded by. But Nicole, again, did seem to be happy with her new friend group, and she actually knew Danny and she liked him. Now, when police brought Danny down to the station, he was absolutely adamant that he had nothing to do with Nicole's disappearance, and he said that the last time that he saw Nicole was a few weeks prior to Halloween, but that he had not talked to her since. Again, Danny did agree to a polygraph test, which he ended up passing, but police weren't entirely convinced of his innocence. They ended up flying a helicopter over Danny's property, trying to see if there was anything that was recently dug up, any spots that looked disrupted in the field, but there was none. So, because of this, and because of the fact that Danny passed the polygraph test, police once again had to redirect their investigation because there was no evidence that they could follow that suggested that Danny was responsible for this. So, with all of this, police are reverting back to their original theory that Nicole is just willingly not coming home. And because, again, she was over the age of 18, she was allowed to do that. But despite this belief, it had been radio silence on Nicole's end. Her credit cards, her phone, nothing was being used. That was until several months after her disappearance when there was a hit on Nicole's credit card. And again, this gave detectives hope. It gave them a direction to go in. And when detectives called Nicole's family to let them know about this is when this theory again was shot down because Robin told detectives that it was in fact her that used the credit card. So Robin used Nicole's credit card, and that is why they got a hit on it to begin with. So again, there was still no activity on Nicole's end whatsoever. Now, sadly, this case did go cold for quite some time, and it wasn't until 2.5 years later, after Nicole went missing in March of 2007, that detectives finally were given a new lead that they believed could help solve this case. In March of 2007, a woman named Suzanne Sanders went to the Bend police and told them that she knew what happened to Nicole Hutchings. Now, Suzanne was actually a friend of Nicole's. She was very close to Nicole, and she was even closer to Lauren Bowers because she was dating Lauren Bowers at the time. When detectives went to go speak with Lauren and Craig at their house, Suzanne was also there because not only was she in a relationship with Lauren, but she also lived at the home at the time. Now, according to Suzanne, she said that her and Lauren did have a child together, and Nicole would oftentimes come over and, again, as I mentioned earlier, spend time with the kids. She would babysit. She would spend time with Lauren, spend time with Suzanne, spend time with Craig. They were all friends together. However, over time, Suzanne said that her personal relationship with Lauren became very, very toxic. Suzanne explained that her and Lauren were in a very on-again, off-again relationship, but she finally decided to break up with Lauren for good not too long before she came to the police in March 2007. And it was in that same interview with police that Suzanne had told them that Lauren was the one who murdered Nicole. When police asked Suzanne how she knew this, she said it was because Lauren told her. Nicole was at their house that night for the Halloween party, and that is when Lauren told Suzanne that he was going to kill Nicole. Suzanne said that when police showed up at their house 2 days later to question everything and to question Nicole's disappearance and talk to Lauren and Craig and herself, she was scared to tell them because Lauren had threatened her by saying that if she ever told anyone anything, he would shoot her in the head. Now, with this new information, even though it did give police a direction in this case that they did not have before, it was not enough information to go through with an arrest, and police needed more, quite frankly. They asked Suzanne if she would be willing to wear a body wire recording device and try and get Lauren to talk about the murder and hopefully get him to confess. And surprisingly, Suzanne did agree to do this. Suzanne arranged for a time to meet Lauren in the park pretty much immediately after this initial interview with police in the beginning of March 2007. Now, officers were surrounding the park just in case something went wrong, just in case Lauren decided to get aggressive or act out. Police were going to be there to help protect Suzanne, but Suzanne was confident that she was going to be able to get a confession out of Lauren, or at least get him to talk. Now, when Lauren arrived to the park, Suzanne and him immediately began talking. Suzanne asked Lauren specific details of what happened the night that Nicole went missing. And in that conversation, Lauren said, quote, "That bitch was trying to destroy my life. How was I supposed to stop that shit? The only way I knew how. And I'll tell you right now, I'll kill myself before I go back to jail." End quote. Now, over the course of the conversation between Lauren and Suzanne, Lauren became incredibly suspicious of Suzanne. He questioned why all of a sudden, all of these years later, Suzanne was asking these questions about the disappearance and about the murder. He didn't understand why Suzanne was all of a sudden so curious, and he flat out asked her directly if she had spoken to police, but Suzanne reassured Lauren that that was not the case. She hadn't spoken to detectives, but she wanted to know these things because it had been bothering her. Now, ultimately, Suzanne directly said to Lauren, quote, "I need to know, what did you do?" And that is when he responded with, "I had her gotten rid of, okay?" Now, that statement alone, along with the entirety of the conversation, was enough for police to go through with an arrest. And 2 weeks later, on March 12th, 2007, Lauren was arrested for the murder of Nicole. Police brought Lauren back down to the station to interrogate him. And when they did, Lauren immediately broke out into hysterics. He becomes hysterical. He is sobbing, and he is constantly saying that he did not have anything to do with Nicole's murder. And he immediately, without hesitation, pins the murder on his best friend, Craig Whiting. Now, again, Craig was the one who had previously lived with Nicole and her family for about 6 months while he was trying to get his life back on track. So with this, police then bring Craig in for questioning as well. So Lauren is in one interrogation room and Craig is in another. And surprisingly, when detectives sat down with Craig, he started talking. Detectives told him that the gig was up and that he needed to confess, And he did. Craig immediately told police that the mastermind behind the entire murder was, in fact, Lauren. Craig said that Lauren told him that he needed to, quote unquote, take care of Nicole. And to Craig, he took that as Lauren was going to kill her. Now, the big question that police had, really throughout the entirety of this whole case, but especially now after hearing Craig and Lauren starting to talk, the big question they had, and it probably is yours as well, is why? What motive would Lauren and Craig have to murder Nicole, someone who has been nothing but a friend for them for all of these years? And Craig actually had an answer for that. According to him, he said that Nicole had been going around telling other people that Lauren had been molesting a young child that was living in the home with Lauren. Now, again, there were several people living in this one house. There was Suzanne, there was Craig, there was Lauren, and there were some others as well. And Nicole was known to go over and not only babysit Lauren and Suzanne's children, but would babysit some of the other kids that were in the home. And on one occasion, it was believed that while Nicole was babysitting these kids, one of the kids had confided in her and told her that Lauren had been touching her inappropriately and that he took pictures of her naked. Now, when Nicole left the house, she immediately called the mother of the child and told her about what the child was saying. And then that mother called Lauren himself. And that is how Lauren knew that Nicole was the one who was saying what the child had said. Now, according to the mother of the child, she said that when she told Lauren about this, Lauren became extremely angry. He was screaming, he was punching the walls. And again, he asked who had told her this, and that is when he learned it was Nicole. Now, given the fact that Lauren was already a registered sex offender for a different crime, police didn't think that this was that far-fetched of an accusation, and this now gave police motive. It gave police motive for why Lauren would want Nicole dead. Lauren was going to do whatever he had to do to keep himself out of prison, and he was going to silence and take out anyone that stood in his way of that. But even though police now had a solid motive for Lauren, they were still trying to understand why Craig would agree to be involved in this. Now, in his interrogation, Craig confirmed that Nicole never did anything to him. She was always a friend to him, but he said that Lauren was his best friend and that you should be able to do anything for your best friend. And again, this was a confession that police were deeply disturbed by. So now that Craig had confessed, police were waiting to see if Lauren would confess, and initially that did not look like it was happening. Lauren was adamant that it was not true, that Craig was lying, and that Craig was the one that was responsible for the murder solely. However, after 2 days of interrogations, Lauren confessed and the murder plot was revealed. Craig and Lauren said that on the night before the murder, so the night before Halloween, the two of them drove out about 15 to 20 miles outside of town to a heavily forested area where they dug a shallow grave for Nicole because, according to them, they planned on killing her the very next night. Now, the next night, which again was Halloween, Craig said that he was the one that went to Nicole's home to tell her about the Halloween party that they were having and invited her to go with him, which she did. Now, Craig and Lauren said that once Nicole was brought to the Halloween party, the goal was to get Nicole as drunk as possible. They were giving her drink after drink and even spiking her drinks with Vicodin. Now, after some time, they did put Nicole into the truck and drove her out to the location that they had dug up the day prior. Now, both Craig and Lauren admitted that once they got out of their truck, they took turns beating Nicole. Craig took the initial hit that made Nicole drop to the ground, and then Lauren took a stick and began beating Nicole in the back of the head, and after multiple blows, she appeared to be dead. Afterwards, they removed her clothing and placed her body into the shallow grave. They then put the dirt back over her body and placed a burnt log over the grave site so they would know where her body was located, and then they left the scene. Now, with this confession, police knew that they were looking at first-degree murder charges for both Craig and Lauren. This was a premeditated, calculated, cold-blooded murder. In order to avoid the death penalty, Craig and Lauren agreed to direct authorities to the gravesite where Nicole's remains were buried, and that is exactly what they did. Nicole's remains were discovered in a 3-foot grave in a wooded area that was southeast of Sun River in Bend, Oregon. Police said that if Lauren and Craig never told them where Nicole was, there was no way they would have ever discovered her body based off of how remote this gravesite was. Now, Nicole was finally found 2.5 years after her murder, and on March 13th, detectives went to Nicole's family and informed them of the arrests and the finding of the remains. And as you can imagine, Nicole's family was absolutely distraught and heartbroken, not only to hear that Nicole was dead, but also to hear who killed her. These were the last 2 names that Nicole's family was ever expecting to hear. Now, both Craig and Lauren did go to trial, and it was during the trial that it was actually revealed that Nicole was still alive at the time that Craig and Lauren buried her. She was in and out of consciousness, and she was still breathing when they left and buried her body. Lauren pled guilty to 2 counts of aggravated murder in December of 2007, and he did say in court, quote, "I want to apologize and give my deepest regrets for the pain and suffering I caused Nicole and her family. I deserve the punishment that has been given," end quote. Craig also pled guilty to aggravated murder in February of 2008, and both men were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And that, you guys, is the murder of Nicole Hutchings. Again, I find this one to be particularly disturbing because these are people that Nicole trusted. These were her friends. These were her close friends. And it's so incredibly heartbreaking to know that Nicole was only trying to do the right thing. She was only trying to help the children who were possibly being affected by Lauren. She was only trying to keep them safe. And in return, she was killed. I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on this case. So make sure you leave them in the comments below. And with that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the 3rd episode of Halloweek. Again, if you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Wednesday, as well as upload the video version onto YouTube as well. So make sure you are subscribed. I will be back tomorrow with the very last episode of Halloweek, and I will see you there. Bye, guys.